Pahlavi text, translated by E.W. West. Part 4, Contents of the Nasks. Clarendon, Oxford University Press, 1892. Dinkard, Book 8, Chapter 7. 1. The Pagog contains particulars about lawfully slaughtering a sheep for the ceremonial of fires, waters, and holy water, in aid of a season festival of the Mazda worshippers. Besides this, namely, in what are the skill and the means for selection of a man for such work, and the formula, nirong, of the ceremony. 2. And this, namely, from which limb of the sheep species is the share of the fires and waters to be taken, and how is the preparation which is to be carried on, and with what avesta. 3. And whatever is about a season festival, where the appointed place is, when one celebrates it, and when it has fully elapsed, the assembly of the season festival, and the donation for the feast, where and when the celebration is possible, in what proportion the provisions are to be given out, and when to be prepared and divided, where its advantage is, and what benefit there is from it to the good creations, both spiritually and materially. 4. And this, namely, what skill is more suitable for the sacerdotal Radpisag leadership and other priestly authority, Radbi, each separately. 5. About the business of the sacerdotal leadership, where it is owing to having appointed the place and having gone forth to the assembly of the Mazda worshippers, and when they are to be made aware that the assembly is more particularly for the arrangement of renunciation of vice and retribution for sin, the needful supply of things, the feast, the selection of the men for the zote duty and raspi duty before the day, the zotis, raspis, and others who put in action the work for the preparation and giving of the portions, and the cleansing of the body clothing. 6. As to the selection of the president, pes gas, of the feast, there is this, namely, what ability is requisite for that presidentship. 7. The allotment of the portions and giving them sooner to those who are sooner in need of them. 8. Scoffing before priestly authorities who are great and good, and when they do not give a portion to the authorities, are cases when the season festivals are not to be considered as celebrated. 9. This too, that the zotis and the raspis are for the zote duty and the raspi duty, and the other priestly authorities for the control of sin and computation of the portions, and more on the same subject. 10. About the rotation of the day watches, gos, days, months, and seasons of the year, which are when it is summer and winter, and the appearances, sahisno, therein, which are owing to the motion of the constellations. 11. Where the coming of the righteous guardian spirits, Fravahar, into the worldly existence occurs, in those 10 days which are the end of winter and termination of the year, because the 5 Gothic days among them are for that purpose, the cessation of that same, as well as its continuance. 12. The great needfulness of the guardian spirits of the righteous in the ceremonial and obeisance of those 10 days, and their abundant gratification therefrom, their vexation from want of welcome and want of obeisance, and their assent from the worldly existences. 13. The extreme importance, frè vo a Nike of liberality and bounty at that season, and the proper duty of the priestly authority of a district chateau in assisting and interceding for the poor, for the sake of teaching from the days devoted to the guardian spirits, proper actions among those having guardian spit its 14 about the period for taking medicinal plants and whatever is on the same subject. Going back to 13, I think it's supposed to be guardian spirits. 15, about where there is a household, village, communal, or provincial petitioning for the royal chastisement of sins affecting the soul, each separately, and for whom is the atonement. 16, about the advantage owing to disposal of sin and infliction of chastisement, and the harm owing to not disposing of sin and neglecting the chastisement inflicted. 17, about the first 33 chieftainships, radi, around and concealed, that is, which and how many are spiritual, and how many worldly, and which is the second, and which the third, the spiritual and worldly existences. 18, about the admirableness and great meritoriousness of public observances, and the awfulness and grievous sinfulness of apostasy. 19, and also this, that is, when anyone is doubtful through apostasy, which is the law from the sacred beings in elucidation, and which of the sacred beings is to be entreated for assistance. 20, about this, namely, for which of the women the bringing of a handful of anything from the property of her husband to be given away is allowable, in what proportion, and how, and for whom, when she gives it away, it is allowable for the husband to bring it back. 21, about this, namely, when summer comes on, where does winter run to? And when winter comes on, where does summer go to? 22, about the amount of disaster that has passed by in 1 century and the duration of its passing, everything which is connected with the disaster and whatever is on the same subject. 23, where and how many months are of such a kind, and how many of such a kind, as well as the righteous names of the 12 months, and the reason of the name of each one of them, that is, to which of the sacred beings in the ceremonial each one of these 12 months is predominantly appertaining, so also of the 30 days which are in every month, and so also of the 5 Gathas in every year, that is, the 5 Gothic days at the end of the year, all the sacred beings to whom they are appertaining, and when the righteous guardian spirits are da'i, fervardo, are reverenced. 24, righteousness is the perfect excellence. What was that sound? So I think in formatting this book, at the end of 13, it says guardian spit its was an autocorrect of some sort. I already mentioned of that. And so 878 has something that's a parallel to Islamic tradition in that it says, in regards to such and such, it's like you didn't even take part in the festivals. You know, there's not 6 in the Islamic world, but there, you could say, 7 days of the festivals, or some say 5, but, you know, there's 2 different festivals. In the Zoroastrian tradition, there's 6 of these festivals. In most European cultures, there was 8. A particular so-called Canaanite culture that's looked up to by the Church of Hermetic Sciences speaks of 4. And the Egyptians sort of had 1 every month, right? But they add the equinoxes and the solstices, and, you know, ones for the points in between.